Good morning, everybody. I think we got everything rolling now. Give it just a second for all those notifications to start heading out to you guys. Make sure you guys go ahead and start sharing. You can also tag your friends in the comments. Let them know. Just be mindful that if you guys are sharing, and especially sharing into groups, that you're just sharing into groups that you know allow this type of content. Let's make sure we're not sharing into like buy sell trade groups and stuff like that, just because we don't want it to cause you problems and cause a lot of backlash on here. So just make sure you guys are sharing. You can share to your pages, you can share to your stories. Over on YouTube, you can hit that share button. You can share it to threads. I'm trying to remember to do that now, because we haven't done as much on that platform. So I think it would be good to kind of start working some things up over there. So if you guys will, if you participate in threads, you can share. I wonder if you can share it. Those of you on Instagram, can you share to threads from Instagram, like a live video? I haven't tried that yet. I was just curious if it will let you do that. I need to start posting for this page over there. May not be added to it yet. I'm not sure. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Like I said, make sure you guys are going ahead and sharing. You can start liking the video, sending up some hearts and all that good stuff. And we are going to go ahead and get rolling. Oh, and be reminded, I didn't bring any, I should have brought some over here with me. Be reminded about the t-shirts, okay? We still have the t-shirts on sale. They are $12 each. Y'all, most of those were anywhere from $22 to like $26 a piece. So that is an amazing deal. So go ahead and make sure you're snagging those up. A few of you have been placing orders, and we have been pushing them out as soon as they come in, okay? So make sure you guys are grabbing up your tees. Some of them are starting to sell out. I know our gray permanent status favored, I think we're down to like one medium. Our original E320 shirt in the black, I think we have like one small and maybe one medium, something like that. So if there was something that you were wanting, we want to encourage you guys, go over there and grab them. You can go to janetgermanministries.com, just like when you guys go to sew, and we have a shop with us tab, and when you click on that, it pulls it up for you. All the shirts are on there, the armbands are on there, all Kingdom Strength stuff, all that good stuff, you know. And I think we have a few of our vinyl stickers left. Very few, just a handful of them. Matter of fact, I think I have them right here, and I can show you guys these. So these, we're just going to take a second and go over this before I get started, okay? While you guys come in. Good morning. Make sure you guys are still sharing. So these are the vinyl stickers. It has our original E320 logo soaring above and beyond. And you can put these on all kind of stuff. You can add them like to your laptop. You can add them to, you know, put it on the back of your phone case. You can put it on your tablet case. If you have big, oversized, like the little over-the-ear headphones, you can put it on that. You can put these on your coffee cups, okay? You can put these on your coffee cups. Wash them really well. Let them dry completely. Put this on over it. And just hand wash it, because these kind of cups, you can't put them in the dishwasher anyway. Because I have one from my boutique of these little stickers that I put on a coffee cup a couple years ago, and it's like perfect. It's not peeling up on the sides or anything. So if you would like to have something like this, you know, on a tumbler or a cup, that would be a great option. So we have a handful of these left on the site. So whenever you go grab your shirt or you grab up some armbands, make sure you get one of these as well, and you can kind of keep that before you all the time, because y'all know we're always going to throw that E320 stuff in there somewhere, okay? I think she was asking, what is Threads? So if you're not familiar with it, Threads is one of the newer apps. Maybe, I don't think it's been out a full year yet. I may be wrong about that, somewhere around there. But it was kind of Instagram's version of Twitter. So when Twitter got bought out and changed over to X, Instagram launched Threads, which was kind of their way of keeping, and it like still connects, which all part of Meta. It still connects to Facebook, still connects to Instagram, because they're all one big company. So it's just another way to reach people. It's definitely more so text type of platform, the way Twitter originally was, but you can still share videos, links, pictures on there. Just a little bit of a different setup. But like anything else, some people prefer that platform more. That's why we have some of you guys that come to YouTube. We have some of you guys that come to Instagram as your go-to platform. So we try to put things out all over the place to kind of reach people where they are. And I'm just basically trying to get myself in the habit of making sure I'm telling you guys, hey, share to these places too. That way we are able to reach all these other people. Because, I mean, there's people on there that get on there and talk all the time, but they don't interact in other places. Yeah. All right, so good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. It is Friday, so we're going to get rolling. If you will, go ahead and start typing in the title. Today's title is "The Desert is Not My Destination." So y'all can start typing that in for us. The desert is not my destination. I just wanted to kind of keep rolling with the theme that we've been on. Not that we necessarily get trapped in themes, but sometimes it's just good to keep expounding on these things and let you guys get things in the fullness of it. We don't want to just touch a little, sprinkle a little something and move on. Okay? We want you guys to get things in their fullness, so it's not just a good word and it's not just something that gets you excited, but it's actually something that you can take on for yourself and find ways to implement it in your everyday life. Okay? So, I think sometimes we kind of have to slow down. As much as, listen, we love new over here. New everything. Okay? New homes, new clothes, new furniture, all that good stuff. But when it comes to the word, sometimes you just got to sit and settle in it. You know what I'm saying? You have to find the place to settle in that and allow it to get in you, because when you're a part of a flow, it's not something that you want to jump in and then we jump out and then we're going to run down here and we're going to jump in there. Because, okay, think of it like a river. It's a consistent flow, but there's different depths at different places. And in those depths, sometimes there's things hidden, good and bad. Rocks can be hidden, logs can be hidden, animals can be hidden, plants can be hidden in that. And all of these are things that you can use as tools, or if you jump into a place, you jump into a certain depth that you're not prepared for, it could be detrimental to you. So we want to keep you in a flow. That way you can be guided to the tools. You can be guided to the places that you're supposed to be versus just jumping in and out here and there. Okay? So we're just going to kind of stay in the flow of getting you, not just getting you out of this desert place, but we want you to understand that this is not it's not your destination. We've been, a lot of times when we start trying to jump into these things, as far as Mom and I go with, teaching and ministering, the further you go, the more God will show you. And sometimes, He'll even show you things with being out and about. He'll show you things through conversations where the more you talk, the more that comes up. He'll let you see stuff on social media to either confirm or show you, yeah, you're on the right path. and sometimes show you how necessary it even is for the things that you were talking about at that time, ministering on. Uh, we're starting to see things where it solidifies just how much people need to understand that the desert place is not for them. It was not made for them. It has a purpose. It has a place, absolutely. But Eden was not a desert place. The land that was originally made for us was not a land of drought, the land of lack, the land of insufficiency. It was a place that was very much lush, had an overabundance of supply. So we need to slow down and realize these things have a place, but that doesn't mean that it has a place for you. The enemy has a place, but that doesn't mean he has a place in and for you. Okay? So, in that, we have to be, I'll say careful, taking care of what is coming to us and essentially coming through us. We can't just take everything at face value. You can't, even a desert place, you can't just take the desert place at face value. We've been saying this over the last couple days, what can I do with this space? Am I supposed to move through it, or am I supposed to create an oasis out of it? Well, you have to treat the Word of God coming through man as the same thing. Because you will see people who will misunderstand, misinterpret the Word, and if you take it at face value, you will cause yourself to stay in a desert place and do without off of a misunderstanding, off of a lack of discernment. And we want you guys to really take the time, even when we start teaching on these things, don't let it be, oh, that was a good live, and you go on about your day. Take the time. Go search these things out. When we give you guys scripture references, go look them up for yourself. Even if we read the whole thing to you, go look them up. Take the time to read it. Take the time to let this thing settle in you so it can be what the Word is supposed to be, which is a tree of life growing within you, bringing life to you, not just a seed that is planted and then dies. Okay? So when we talk about the desert place, you got to keep it in that same context. I'm taking this at face value, and I'm going to go always. We're going to go back to the Word. We're going to go back to God, and we're going to say, what do I do with that? Because the desert place will cause you, again, to dry up. It'll cause you to start feeling like a place of abandonment. It'll start causing you to even try to put a death grip on the supply that you do have. It'll put a clench down on what is in your hand, because why? Fear starts creeping in. If I'm stuck here. This is why you need to know the desert is not your destination. You're not stuck there. That's not where you're supposed to stay. You may be passing through. You may be called there to build something, but you're not called to be stuck there. Even plants that are built for the desert, they can't hold on to their supply too long. You look at something like a cactus and succulents, okay? You look at stuff like that, they are created for holding a reserve. Just like we are. We are created for holding a reserve. We are created to be storehouses. But we're not created to hoard. And if a cactus hoards its reserve and does not turn it over in due time, if it doesn't draw up out of the well when that reserve is called for, it will rot. If it tries to hold that moisture in its leaves, because if I don't hold on to this, I'm going to dry up. If I don't hold on to this, I'm going to die off. It will actually, the thing that was meant to preserve it, the thing that was meant to bring sustenance and give it a long life, will cause it to burn. It leaves scarring on it. So you have to be willing to say, I'm a storehouse, but only until God calls for it. I'm not going to sit in the desert and rot from the inside out because I'm scared to use my supply. When the prophet was sent to the brook and the supply was brought to him by wild animals at that, you got a bird bringing you supply. That should be supernatural enough in and of itself. But if he sat there and just held it in his hands, or just put it in his bag and said, I've got to hold on to this because I don't know, that was supernatural. I don't know if that's going to happen again. What if that was just a coincidence? Maybe that bird just dropped it by accident as it was flying overhead. No, he had to know, this is my supply. It's being called for. I'm hungry. It's being called for. There's a need. It's being called for. So I'm going to use this supply. I'm not going to let it rot in my pockets. I'm not going to let it rot in my bag. Same thing, like with those cactus. If you let them just sit in moisture, it will rot from the inside out. I have gone through plenty of cactus, succulents, all of those dry land type of plants. Okay, they know how to pull out of their environment what they need for that time, and you got to be the same way. I'm going to find a way to pull some moisture out of this atmosphere when it's necessary. I'm going to, why? Because we're pulling it from the atmosphere of the supernatural, not just from the atmosphere of the earth realm. I'm going to hold the reserve until God says let it go. Because this isn't my destination. I don't have to worry about setting up camp here. This is not my place where I'm going to spread out my tent pegs. I'm just going to lay down for a minute, get myself rested, and I'm going to move on. When you see in Genesis 28, because there's some misunderstanding and some miscommunication around this. Because I'm telling you, the desert place in the wilderness was not for us. Yes, God took them through the wilderness to give them a way of escape. It gave them cover, it gave them protection, it gave them provision, because there was things in the wilderness that they could use to their advantage. But it was never meant for them to stay there. Anytime that God would find people in a wilderness situation, it was Him coming to them. I'm going to meet you where you're at. I'm going to come to you, and I'm going to say, okay, it's time to go over here now. Let me show you the way out of the wilderness. People never went into the wilderness to find God. He met them where they were. And it's the same thing here. God will come to your desert place, but God does not wait in the dry place to show you a thing. So in Genesis 28, when we see something, like Jacob, you've got Jacob and Esau. Their father Isaac blessed them, sent them on their way, right? But he gave him specific instruction. He gave them specific instruction. He blessed Jacob. He said, do not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Meaning, don't settle here. This is not for you. This is not what you need to come in covenant with. You need to go over here. You need to go over here. It's a place called Padanaram. You need to go over there. Was that, in this case, it was the place of his mother's family. You need to go over there. You need to go back where your folks are from. And that's not always in the natural. Sometimes he's saying you need to go back where your spiritual connection is. You need to go back where your spiritual motherhood, fatherhood, whatever that looks like for you, where your connection is solid, where they can help you, where they can grow. You need to go back over there to them folks, because there's provision for you over there. So this is on Genesis 28. I'm just kind of paraphrasing because it's a lot to read. But when you get down, it says, Isaac blessed Jacob, sent him on his way, in about verse 6. Okay? When you get down to verse 10, says, and Jacob went out from Beersheba, which was the area that they were in, and went toward Haran. People get stuck right there. Oh, he went to Haran. And see, he had an encounter there. Absolutely. That is God coming to you in your wilderness, your desert place, meeting you, giving you the word for the next. That's not the place he was called to. And we forget that. We forget the rest of the instruction that came from his father. You need to go over there to your kinfolk's area. And we only see is, oh, he stopped in Haran. Honey, that was a resting place. Because even in verse 11, lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night because the sun was set. So it's getting nighttime. We in the desert. First of all, in the desert place, it is blazing during the day, but it's cold at night. Also, it's cooler, more animals start coming out. You start having to deal with scorpions and all this other nonsense. You better find yourself somewhere to sit down and stay out of trouble. And then when morning comes, you can move on towards the place that God told you to go to. It's a reason that God told us not to be up late in the night and then trying to jump up early in the morning and do something. Why? Because during the nighttime, there's a transition in the earth. There's a transition in the supernatural. And you need to be in a resting place where you can hear and where you're out of trouble and you know what's going on. And then when morning comes, we're going to progress forward to what God told us to do. The difference, see, Haran was a desert place, or is a desert place. It's dry, nothing. It's desert land. But Padanaram, where he was told to go, is not. It's actually, and I looked up the meaning of it yesterday when we were sitting discussing some of this stuff. When I looked up the meaning of it, it is actually a field. So you mean to tell me God's taking you out of a desert place into a field? Field means seed time. Field means harvest. Field means production. I can't plant much of anything out there in the desert. You can plant a cactus. It ain't going to provide you much sustenance. When I'm desperate, I can eat the meat of a cactus. When I'm desperate, I can drink from a cactus. Absolutely. There's provision in the desert place. But it was a pass-through place. It was not a place to remain. It was not his destination. Instead, he was supposed to come here, the place of his family. Also, I pulled it up on the map and I start looking at this thing. What is this? Where is this? What does it look like? It was just on the other side of Haran. It is a wide open space. Okay, we read you all the time about God bringing you into a wide open space. But he couldn't just stop there. He had to move on past that. And when you pull it up, this area is just on the other side of the Euphrates River, and it has a smaller river that branches off right towards it. So you mean to tell me God called him to Haran, the desert place? That wasn't the instruction. He was called to go beyond the desert, into the field, into a place that had supply for him, into a place that had water supply for him. The very opposite. Everything that he needed. It was a wide open space with field to plant in, with water to draw from, and the people that he was called to be connected to. On the way, he got rest. He was able to see of God. He had that encounter because God met him where he was, and then he moved on beyond it. He didn't set up camp there. And that's what you guys got to see. That Haran is not your destination. This open field is your destination. This supply. Okay, we just talked about, what was it she said? Of the rest, replenishment. I need the 3 words and I don't have them in front of me here. That's what this is. A place of rest. A place of refreshment. A place of replenishment. A place where you, I don't have to force the cactus to give up its supply to me so I can live over it. When we talk about dominion, that's not what God meant by take dominion. Was you give up your supply because I'm a child of God and I'm supposed to be living over you. No. It was supposed to be come out into the field, set up your dominion here so that they can see the way God brings you into a good land and causes you to prosper there, causes you to be able to grow there. Every challenge he faces after that, God always gives him a way out of it. Anything that looked like a desert, anything that looked like it was not the promise, God gives him a way out of it. So I'm telling you guys, don't take this stuff for face value. You find out what is beyond Haran, what is beyond the desert place. Because I can look at this and say, he could have looked at this and said, well, I just had an encounter here. Because we know when you get further down in 12, it talks about, and he dreamed, behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, and behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham thy father, the God of Isaac. The land wherein thou liest to live will I give to thee, and to thy seed. And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south, and in thee, and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. God brought blessing to him there, but that does not mean camp out there. God's brought blessing to you in many places. He's brought blessing to you when you got married. But you can't live in 1984 for the rest of your life and say, I can't move past this. That was a place of blessing for me. He blessed you, put a blessing in your life when you had your children. But you can't say, well, 2000, when I had my first child, was a place of blessing for me. I have to stay here. Because that's what it looks like to take it at face value. If I'm just going to camp out in this old blessing. No, I'm going to take everything that he said was mine within that blessing, and I'm going to go into a land where I can multiply. He could not multiply. Really, he couldn't even fulfill the blessing that God just spoke over him sitting in Haran. Wasn't no women there. I just told you, thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad, north, south, east, and west. How are you going to do that as a single man sitting in the desert by yourself? I have to move past and get over into the field. I have to act on that blessing that is spoken over me in the desert place, because it's a word of encouragement. It's a word of hope. It's a word of you still have a future beyond this that you're sitting in. So you have to be willing to take that and say, okay, let me go find the resources. I've already been given the destination. So let me get to that destination, connect it to the word that I was given along the way, and see what God has, what resources has he planted in that land to bring this to pass. You're not, I'm telling you, the desert is not your destination. It was only a pass-through land. That dried up brook was not the prophet's destination. It gave him sustenance, and God spoke to him and gave him the next instruction. You go into the widow woman. And that's what you guys have got to say. When all this starts drying up, this job starts drying up, this relationship starts drying up, your children doing their own thing, it feels like it's drying up. That's when you have to say, okay, God, I feel like this is the desert place. I know it's not my destination. What's the next instruction? This is not the answer here. So what is? Let me see, let me pull this up. Isaiah 38. So give me just a second here. If you haven't already, please make sure you share. You can also tag your friends. Okay, Isaiah 38. This will show you how a circumstance can be a desert to you, okay, in the moment. Sometimes we take some things a little too literally, and we think it only applies to this if it works out this way. We know you guys are not physically sitting in a desert. You sitting in Tennessee, you ain't sitting in no desert. You sitting in Florida, it feels like a desert, but we're not sitting in a desert. It's just hot. But sometimes your circumstance in and of itself will feel like a desert place. And you got to be able to understand how to navigate that. So this is what this was, okay? Isaiah 38 says, in those days, King Hezekiah of Judah became ill and was at the point of death. Death probably feels like a desert place when you know it ain't your time to leave. Yeah, you're technically in the desert, but you got a desert with supply, Miss Becky. So when you're at the point of death and you know it ain't time for death, that's going to feel like a desert to you. It says, in Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, came to him and said, Thus saith the Lord, set your house in order, for you shall die and not live. He didn't just take that word at face value, though. He didn't say, well, that's what God said. This is where it's led me. So be it. Same way with Jacob. He didn't just get to Haran and say, well, God said head this direction. This is where I am, so be it. It says in verse 2, Then Hezekiah turned his face to the wall and prayed to the Lord and said, Remember earnestly now, O Lord, I beseech you, how I have walked before you in faithfulness and in truth, with a whole heart absolutely devoted to you, and have done what is good in your sight. And Hezekiah wept bitterly. That right there was him saying, you've kept me up until this point. I've been faithful to you up until this point. And then he was allowed the space to even get the release that he needed as a man. He called forth the spiritual. I've been faithful. I walk in truth. My heart's devoted to you. Says, and Hezekiah wept bitterly. His soul, mind, will, and emotions, and his flesh was able to have a release of, and this is what you guys need to know too. You're allowed to have a space of release and relief. You're allowed to have a moment of, this disappointed me. It's not the way I thought it would go. I'm going to deal with it and move on. But see, there's an instant turn here. Because sometimes dealing even with the flesh in what feels like a desert place, sometimes it's casting down a thought. Sometimes it's getting your mouth right. Sometimes it's getting that release of really almost like getting it off of you. You cry it out, you scream it out, you do whatever you need to do. I get that release. I'm staying in the supernatural about it. Because I'm not going off on nobody. I'm not going off and doing anything sinful. I haven't caused any kind of destruction. But I got that off my flesh. Okay? And immediately there was a turn. It says, Then came the word of the Lord to Isaiah, saying, there's no gap of time here. Go and say to Hezekiah, Thus says the Lord, the God of David your father, I have heard your prayer. I have seen your tears. Behold, I will add to your life 15 years. Meaning there's something beyond this. Get out of Haran. Here's your word. Go on to what's next. It says, And I will deliver you and this city out of the hand of the king of Assyria. And I will defend this city, Jerusalem. And this will be the sign to you from the Lord, that the Lord will do this thing that he has spoken. Well, it was the same way with Jacob. He moved on, and God gave him land. He moved on, and God gave him a space and caused him to be a man that was seen of God by the people. There's something different about him. There's something different in the way things work for him. But think of this. Had Hezekiah just accepted, this is my destination. I just need to do what I need to do to prepare for my next, as in of death, set my house in order, because at face value, the word of the Lord is, I'm dying and there's nothing I can do about it. But instead, he took that as a warning. Everything, even words that you get from ministers or from God himself, 9 times out of 10, it's always an opportunity. Good or bad, it's always an opportunity. The dream that Jacob had was an opportunity. It wasn't a final word. He had to move on from Haran to be able to solidify that word. He had to put action and put faith in the God of his fathers. Same way with Hezekiah. He had to take that at face value and say, I have the opportunity to set my house in order and accept this, or I can at least plead my case to God. I can at least lean on the faith that I have had up until this point. I can at least lean on my faithfulness. And that's what you guys are going to have to do when you're in these desert places, and especially when it looks like there's no end in sight, and you've got all these people telling you, well, God just puts you in a desert so you can learn this. God puts you in a desert so he can meet you there. Absolutely not. He's coming to you saying, there's an opportunity here. He's coming to you and saying, there's more beyond this. Had he not taken that opportunity, then it wouldn't be that him and the city would be delivered out of the hands of Assyria. Could it be that they were in a Esther situation? Of if you don't speak up, it's going to cause... See, you don't know what is beyond you moving out of that desert place. You don't know what all it's attached to. You don't know who all it's attached to. So I can't just lay in this bed and accept the word of death. I can't just lay in this bed and accept, well, that's, it's a final word. He couldn't just lay on them rocks and in the sand in Haran and say, well, this is it. I went in the direction. No, I've got to get on the other side of that thing and say, I've got a field to go to. I've got to get on the other side of that thing and say, I've got water waiting for me over there. I've got people I'm supposed to connect to on the other side of Haran. I don't know what they look like. I don't know what their names are. I don't know what all will come out of it. He could have said, well, we already dealing with the king of Assyria. Might as well just lay here and die anyway. Then it's not my problem. That would have stripped King Hezekiah of his faithfulness. It would have stripped him of even his integrity. when you've been called to live in dominion, what a king does, you don't just accept everything as the final word. You don't just accept everything as because it's too much on my shoulders. Not a heavy weight, not a burden. But we pulling the kingdom of God in here. I can't just drop the load and say, oh well, that was it. There's something beyond this. And if you will do like him and say, I'm pulling on the consistency, I'm pulling on the faithfulness, then just as him, you will move into your place of celebration and victory. Just as Jacob, I'm going off the word of my father. I'm going off the blessing that is spoken over me. I'm going off the word of the Lord that came to me along the way, and I'm going to get to what is beyond this. Because the desert is not my destination. And just in as much you can say the deathbed is not my destination. That's a place of giving up. It's one thing when you have run a long, full race, especially with the Lord, and you just say, all right, that's enough. You just go on to sleep and transition on. You just step out of one realm into another. But it's a whole other thing. This man was not fulfilled. His land wasn't fulfilled. His people wasn't fulfilled. His life wasn't fulfilled. It wasn't time for him to just accept. No, it was time for him to give some pushback and say, there's something beyond this. I've got to go to it. Does it tell you all that in the scripture? No. Sometimes you got to take context clues and you got to come to a resolve within yourself. What mental space would you be in if someone told you today at 30 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old, get your house in order, you're going to die. Thus saith the Lord, and walk out. You too would be pleading your case to God. Now, I've been faithful. You've carried me this long. You've given me provision. Now we even have more to pull on than King Hezekiah did through biblical foundation. You said you would satisfy me with long life. You said you would put me in a good land. You said you would put me in an open space. So I'm not going to be restricted to the desert place. I'm not going to be restricted to the place of death. I'm not going to sit here and rot from the inside out because I won't let go of what the reserve that you gave me. I'm going to put this reserve, I'm going to put this replenishment that was given to me in a time of overflow. That's the thing about the desert. They don't get rains often, but when they do, it's torrential downpours, flooding, overflow, more than enough. And that's what those plants do. Those cactuses, they gather up that overflow and they cause it to release for sustenance. It doesn't hold on to it saying, well, I don't know when it's going to rain again. If it's going to rain again, who knows? I may just have to let this, seep through me until I just dry up. I may just, let me just hold it at the base and I'll just rot. No, it uses it in its due time, and as creation, It believes and it understands more's coming. I'll pull it out of the atmosphere. If you watch plants enough, you'll see they stretch for light. If you've got a succulent that is supposed to be wide like this, and instead, because they're supposed to be short and they're supposed to be get big around, they'll get as big as dinner plates or bigger, spreading out. We talk about move out your tent pegs, spread out. You're going to need lots of room. That's what succulents do. They spread out wide so they can take in that sun, and they have roots that go down deep so they can draw in from the depths of the earth. But if you ever see succulents, especially you go in stores or you go in restaurants where they've got these things sitting around and they've got a thin neck all stretched out, sometimes it'll be curved around. What is it doing? It is stretching for light. This is not a conducive space for me. I've got to stretch to get to what I need. That's not what you're called to. You're not called to a space where you've got to stretch yourself so thin and so long to get out what you need. You're called to be in a place where you can spread abroad in healthy, in fullness. Okay? So, I am going to put up the links for you guys, and I'll call them out to you here in just a second. Some of you may just need to sow a seed for this specifically. This is not my destination. This desert place is not going to be my destination. I'm going to move on, and I'm going to get into the land that has fields, and it has rivers that I can access, that I can, sow my seed into, that I can reap a harvest off of, that I can find my connections, that I can fulfill the very word that I was given in the desert place that was called to get me to my next. So you guys can head over to janetgermanministries.com. We have the sow a seed page there. The first button says sow a seed and will take you over to Givelify, which is the faith-based service that we have available to you guys. The second button says sow via PayPal and will take you to paypal.me/JGMIN. And they will ask you to log in to your PayPal account. You guys know that you can no longer give us a guest on PayPal. And then we also have the buttons for Cash App. If you click those buttons, it opens the app for you with the name already typed in. But if you like to pull them up for yourself, we have $JGerman, MIN, for the ministry. And then for personal, we have $Katie German, and that is CATIE. Just a reminder, if you guys haven't been watching in a while, Mom no longer has her personal Cash App, but you guys can still designate personal seeds through all of these other avenues that we have available to you. All of them have a section. It either says message or note, depending on the platform. But you can put personal for, gift for, and include the name. And that's for Givelify, PayPal, and Cash App. And two, that just allows us to keep everything the way that it needs to be in the giving records, okay? And then you can mail in your seed to P.O. Box 1011, Bartow, Florida 33831. Okay? And just as a reminder, I know I mentioned I kind of took some extra time when we first started, but the t-shirts, E320 t-shirts, armbands, stickers, all that good stuff, you can get those on that same website. So we have the Sow a Seed tab, and then towards the end we have the Shop with Us, and you can go on there and grab those up. So you guys have an amazing Friday. We will be back on Sunday at 8:30 a.m. streaming on all platforms as well as Dominion.tv. I don't know if she has any pop-ups planned for you guys, But especially since she wasn't on this morning, I would just encourage y'all, keep your eyes open. Okay, even if she does it on her personal page, she does now usually pull it up for YouTube as well. So just keep your eyes open. Make sure you got those notifications turned on. If you had them on in the past, I encourage you guys to go back. You can hit the little, I know on Facebook, if you hit the little three dots beside a post, there should be an option like that says turn on live notifications towards the bottom. Okay. After so long, I know Facebook just kind of like goes through and refilters things. They change things up and you have to kind of reinstate it. But if you're not getting notifications or you feel like they're coming in really slow, you may want to go back and do that. So I encourage you guys, do it on Facebook. Make sure on YouTube you've hit the little bell button. Okay, that's what gives you your notifications there. And I think on Instagram you have to go to our actual account and turn on notifications that way, like click on our page and do it that way. But just make sure they're on. That way you guys aren't missing these daily lives. We're on Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. and then you're not missing out on pop-ups. Okay, so y'all have an amazing day and we will see you very soon. Bye y'all.